Thank you for everything that you've said so far. It's been amazing. And a thought that went through my mind was, I've noticed in my own life that when I have difficulty or there's friction inside of me, then that can produce something that's very beautiful.
Yeah.
If I stay in the awareness of it rather than jump back to the story or the conditioning. So I wondered what that's like when a group of people come together.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally resonate with that. So one of the things that's possible when we awaken to what I was calling evolutionary love, this passion to go somewhere new, to evolve ourselves and our relationships, is that we're not so worried about avoiding conflict. So many people, of course, one of the big spiritual ideals is peace.
Yeah.
Peace, and we definitely need a lot more of that.
Yeah.
But I feel that peace is not enough. Peace, we have to realise a fundamental peace through trust and recognising, well, that we're on the same page. We're ultimately one being, you know. But once that's established between 2, 3, 4, however many people, then we can actually free. You know, we can allow ourselves to be a lot more free, and allow ourselves to engage in friction, because we can fundamentally trust where we're coming from. You see? So if you deeply trust the intention of another, and we acknowledge that to each other, then we can actually just allow ourselves to speak our mind, you know, to share what we think, to bring things up that making us feel uncomfortable or we have questions about, and you know, that's all that kind of stuff. Usually, people just avoid,
yes.
You know, or if they don't avoid it, it ends up coming out through the ego, you know, through anger and attack, and you know, conflict as we know and experience it. So one of the very exciting potentials in terms of coming together in this sort of evolutionary process is that we can actually encourage what we call here creative friction. So that means you don't hold back. You don't hold back. There's nothing to protect. We don't need to try and be politically correct. And this is a way that then we can really start to support each other. I mean, just for example, because of course all of us, you know, we're all very conditioned. We all have you know, different ego structures based on our psychology and also our upbringing and also our cultural conditioning. You know, because we're all shaped by culture far more than most of us even recognise. So, of course, if we want to be free, awakened, liberated human beings, we want to liberate ourselves and each other from any of those kind of patterns that inhibit our full expression. And you know, if you're a serious and sincere person, you can go so far with that by yourself, you know. But it's only in relationship really that you get to see yourself very clearly, because of course other people can see ourselves much more clearly. And vice versa, so we can be mirrors for each other. So you see, if there's a very strong ground of trust and shared commitment, that means you could potentially, if you felt I was acting out of ego, or I said or did something that somehow you felt was off or wasn't clean or whatever, in the context we're living in and endeavouring to create, we make it a responsibility that you say something. Because if you don't, then you're actually feeding the world the story of separation.
Yeah.
Now, in the quote normal world, that might be wise because there's not a shared agreement to break through into a new world. So yeah, it's probably not the best thing to tell your mother, your father, your boss, you know, everything that
you're acting from ego.
Exactly. But in this context, you actually can, and you know, sometimes that might be relatively easy, but of course sometimes it's challenging because you know, maybe it's not completely clear to the other person, or maybe you're wrong, or maybe it's reveals something about your ego or your kind of projection. But you see, we can only find out this stuff. We can only find out what's true, deeply what's true together, if we're willing to let go, to trust, and also not to engage in creative friction. And so that means when friction would start, you know, when we would start to, you could say, conflict, or there's a bit of like, instead of the knee-jerk response being, there's something wrong here, or oh, we're losing peace, or whatever. You see, because that's normally what happens. Is the emotions coming, because of course when there's friction, there's emotion normally that's generated, and then we tend to identify with the emotion and the mental position, and then we go like that. You see, we polarize, and then suddenly you're separate. But if you stay true to the knowing that however it seems, however difficult it might feel, that on a deeper level, which is really consciousness itself, which is deeper than feeling and emotion. If we stay true to the knowing that no, we're actually together and we want the same thing, then it means when there's friction, we can actually lean in. You see, we can actually lean in and go, okay, so what's true here? Let's really get to the truth. And maybe if it's something happening between two people, you might bring in other people, or it might be happening in a bigger context. The more people you know and have available to you who are engaged in this passion for truth, the more helpful it can be. But also, it's not only helpful, it's actually very thrilling and liberating, because it's very thrilling when you're not afraid of that kind of conflict, because you recognise there's something very pure. As you said, there's a kind of fire. So there's a pure fire behind it. There's an evolutionary impulse, and the movement of evolution has to burn up and break through the old. That's how evolution works, and so spiritual evolution is not all sweetness and light. It can be very hard work. It can often mean enduring a lot of complexity and friction. But if we don't fragment, if we have the strength and the humility and trust to stay true to
vulnerability
absolutely vulnerability. We're not afraid to be exposed.
Sure.
We're not holding on to a self-image that we need to protect. You see, this is deep stuff. Then we get to really see how attached we are. Go ahead.
Well, that's where the phase comes from, isn't it? That vulnerability is actually a great strength.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because normally we equate it with weakness. Yeah. And that's really what humility is. Humility is a source of strength that's based in vulnerability. Which of course is the opposite of arrogance. Of I know who I am and where I'm going, and don't you tell me otherwise.
And this is exactly what I've experienced with my back pain, because I've shared that with people that listen to my videos, is not being the strong one, not being the capable one, and actually having to wait for somebody to lift the compost out of my car, or and right at the beginning when it's really bad, get the washing out of the washing machine. And it's been such an awakening for me, because I've had to gain a completely different relationship and perception of myself. And it's not been easy, but I truly believe that when I've gone through all of this and have gained a deeper understanding of myself, then the pain will gone. And of course I want to be fit again, but
but you're not trying to be anything other than who you are, than what is.
Well, because that will just create more pain. I've learned that lesson.
And what you just said about being with what is, that's really it. It's really being more interested in what is in any moment, and there is only one moment.
Yes.
And this is it. Without reference to the past or the future or our ideas or what we want. And it's when we start to find that vulnerability and trust in what is, that the psychological bubble that is the world of separation begins to burst, begins to break, and we start to feel in communion with the other and with life itself. There's nothing to protect. There's no war here. And in initial stages, it's not so easy because that's our habit, is to be protected. But as we experience the liberation of breaking through that, one time, two times, or if we have a difficulty in a conflict with someone who shares this passion, and then we break through and come together one time, two times, you see the trust deepens and deepens.
Sure.
And one's self-expression and joy becomes more and more free. And then you never want to go back. You can't even imagine going back. You can't go back. And and it's then the whole world of relationship becomes endlessly fascinating. It's always very alive, because you might know somebody very well, but there's something you're like, well, you don't know. You don't know who is this person. Who am I? Who am I? I don't know.
Certainly.
There's always a living sense of newness and potential, and you see that means there's something very, very vibrant in the relational field. You don't just take each other for granted. You're just like, oh, hi, how are you? I know who you are. You see, this is a lot of how relationships are in the world of the ego.
Yeah, people like to box other people in, and they often create their own little box.
Exactly.
So for people that feel that they can't come to Portugal, how could they benefit from the Awaken Life project or the wisdom that's here?
If they can't come here?
Yeah, so is there another way they could work?
Well, that's something I'm actually working on. So I want people can go to our website and see what's on there currently. We have a lot of different events. But something I'm actually working on is making more available through the internet. But it's in process, in terms of some ways that people can engage or do some kind of online course or something like that.
Do you offer one-to-one sessions?
I actually just started to do that. So people can also go to my website. I have my own personal website,
if you'd like
which
to
is peterbrampton.com. So that's Peter, BAMPTON.com. And I'm starting to write some articles. I'm actually writing a book at the moment, so I'm posting some chapters as I go along.
Are they free?
Yeah. Free.
So get it now, guys.
And and I'm now I've put up on there that I'm going to start offering just one-to-one sessions and see where that goes.
Great.
And I'm offering that on a donation or gift economy basis. So I want to make that. This all depends on my commitments and my time, obviously, because I have quite a lot of other commitments. But I do feel like I want to find ways to make what we're doing here available to people who can't necessarily come here physically.
Great. Well, all I can say is not all I can say, what I'd like to say is I've really enjoyed being here, I've really enjoyed meeting Peter and Cynthia and the whole community, and Avadanja, where I'm actually staying most of the time.
Which is a sister community of the Awaken Life project.
Absolutely, thank you. And check it out, guys. The Awaken Life Project.org.
That's right.
Yay! Okay, thanks.
Thank you.